Hi everyone. Hola a todos y a todas. Thank you all for being here and watching my presentation. And this is going to be a presentation that I will do both in English and in Spanish. Y durante esta presentación voy a estar explicándoles por qué en esta presentación que se llama Ni de aquí ni de allá. Voy a estar hablando sobre mi vida bicultural, mi vida bilingüe y lo positivo, lo negativo, y también voy a estar hablándoles sobre cómo ustedes también pueden criar un hijo o una hija que sea bilingüe. So thank you all for joining me once again. So for those in the language community who don't know me, my name is Miguel. I was born in New York City, in the northern borough called the Bronx. And my family is from Mexico. They are from the state of Puebla, and more specifically in the southwest part of the state, which has the nickname of La Mixteca Poblana. And so I am the oldest of three children. So when I was born, obviously I was the first one. My parents only spoke Spanish at home, and this was the official language of our household. And so I came in, and then my siblings arrived later on. And so my parents always communicated with us in Spanish. And this was the language that we always spent time talking until we started going to school. I first started going to school at 6 years old. I was entered directly into first grade. I didn't have that chance to go into kindergarten. But there is where I started not just to learn how to read, but I was put into bilingual class. So in this bilingual class, we didn't just have kids who were Mexican. We had kids who were from, most commonly, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and sometimes a few other countries as well. And this is where I did speak Spanish with our teachers. Most of our teachers were from the Caribbean. And then at home, we would speak Spanish, of course, until then about a year passed. We also started to learn how to read in English because that was one of the objectives in bilingual class, to learn how to speak and read and write and listen in both languages. And then one thing that changed how my English level would go was when my parents got cable, as silly as it does sound. I had the chance to watch more cartoons in English. I got to watch a bit more content in English. And so this is how my English skills skyrocketed, and I learned more vocabulary, and I listened to the language a lot more. Pero sí, mi primer idioma fue español. Y a los 4 años, mis padres decidieron mandarme a mí y a mi hermano a México. Ellos decidieron que tal vez era mejor para mí ir a ver a mis abuelos, a algunos miembros de mi familia que viven allá. Y era para ayudarme a aprender más vocabulario y a estar más expuesto al español, porque mis padres son de un pueblo muy pequeño y ahí tal vez tendría más oportunidades de salir, de conocer más niños, comparado con la ciudad. En la ciudad no conocía a los vecinos, no salía mucho a jugar. Entonces en México ellos pensaron que tal vez yo tendría esta oportunidad. Y en estos momentos no recuerdo mucho de lo, lo, el tiempo que pasé en el país, en el pueblo. Sí tengo memorias, algunas memorias distintas, pero sí, siempre allá siempre fue hablando español, claro, y conocí a algunas personas de mi barrio, pasé tiempo con mis tíos y después con mis abuelos. Y mis abuelos tenían una pequeña tienda de abarrotes en el país, en el pueblo, que disculpa ahí, en el pueblo. Entonces yo tenía la oportunidad también de hablar con personas diferentes que entraban a nuestra tienda para comprar algunas cosas. Y así eso me ayudaba con uh, desarrollar mis habilidades en español. Y cuando regresé de ese viaje, uh, mis padres notaron una diferencia en mi español. Entendieron que podía hablar el idioma mejor. Y fue algo que fue bueno para mí, según ellos. Y después yo entiendo ahora que fue bueno ese viaje, ir a México y a hablar más español. And now, after I learned English in New York, at this point, I was bilingual, but I was only 8 years old when I got to this point. Uh, and bilingual education only continued for about 5 more years for me. Uh, my school was supposed to have a sixth grade, but that very year I was about to go to sixth grade, being in the fifth grade, of course, my school decided that they would eliminate the sixth grade. And so my grade would have been the first one that would graduate, and then we would have to go to a different school. And so this is what happened. And once I got to sixth grade in junior high school, or middle school, as we also call it, I no longer had bilingual education, so my classes were now completely in English. We did have Spanish classes, but this was more for the students who did not come from Spanish backgrounds. Uh, they were all separated from the rest of us. Like the rest of us, including myself, we got Spanish grammar lessons, so we learned more specific things in the Spanish language about verb tenses, grammar. And we had this for the 3 years that I was in middle school. And so this was where I clearly noticed that outside of my home I would use English, and inside of my home with my family I would use Spanish. And even here in junior high school, I started understanding that I would get exposed to different variants of Spanish as well. It would be a stronger feeling in high school, but here I met more Dominican kids that purely spoke Spanish, some Puerto Ricans who only spoke Spanish and preferred Spanish to English at times, or were also bilingual like myself, but they liked to switch languages, like I eventually started to do. And so these 3 years were where I had to work a little harder to maintain that balance. Pero en casa, no solamente seguía hablando con mi familia en español, pero después mis padres Mis padres escuchaban música de México y entonces comencé a escuchar música regional mexicano, especialmente algunos ritmos tropicales que a ellos les gustaban, como cumbia. Y entonces comencé a escucharlo también porque estaba expuesto al español y me gustaba la música. Y aunque ahora como adulto descubrí que la música es algo que me gusta para aprender un idioma, creo que en aquel entonces comencé a descubrir que la música era algo bueno para mí en aprendizaje de idiomas. Me gustaba escuchar música en español. Y entonces ahí fue que seguí aprendiendo más vocabulario y seguía expuesto al idioma. Y a mi familia le gustaba reunirse de vez en cuando para cumpleaños, fiestas distintas, celebraciones, días festivos como la Navidad, Año Nuevo. Y ahí siempre veíamos a nuestros familiares y nuevamente el idioma que hablábamos era en español. Y también aparte de ese viaje que tuve solo con mi hermano, eh, cuando era más joven teníamos viajes a México a veces cada año y usualmente eran la Navidad. Entonces yo seguía hablando español con mis abuelos, yo hablaba también con algunos primos que estaban allá también. Y entonces ahí no dejaba que el inglés me no dominara la vida. Tenía espacio para el español y ahí traté de mantener el idioma. Now, uh, after those several trips to Mexico, my father switched jobs and it wasn't so easy to go to Mexico anymore. So I had to do my uh, language learning experiences all in New York. And once I got to high school, it was the same thing as middle school. My classes were only in English, but I had a lot more Hispanic students with me this time. And as teenagers, we started to like listening to bachata. And in high school, this was around the time that reggaeton blew up in the world. And so then I also started to like reggaeton. And this exposed me to Spanish from Puerto Rico. And so I also this is when I also discovered the technique of shadowing because when I constantly listened to the music, I started developing an ability to imitate the accent and learn their vocabulary and the slang. And with certain people, I would use these words, although at one point, like they sound funny because I'm Mexican and I'm not supposed to be speaking the way they speak, or I can't use the same vocabulary. But these were funny memories for everyone because at the time, like bachata and reggaeton were very popular, and so yeah, this is the music that the youth like to listen, and uh, these this was really a funny time, and this is what helped me not to forget my Spanish, not just not to not forget the Spanish, but then I started going into variants, and this was a point where I also got to learn the bit of the Dominican Spanish through bachata, through listening to the radio as well, because there were a lot of radio shows that were popular in Spanish, not just in English. And later on, as an adult, I noticed that in the media, in the national media, there were a lot of Mexicans that were working there. But in local media, we had people from the Caribbean who were often on TV, on the radio, and there were some specific personalities who became very popular in New York. There was one from Puerto Rico, for example. Like, he was a very popular radio personality, and people loved him. And he also had this ability to imitate accents, which I then picked up from him, and I thought that was really funny. So these were some people that continued to help me keep my Spanish, because I loved listening to them. They were really funny, and it was very entertaining. Uh, and then later on, when this personality switched the radio networks, he started using more English. And so I got exposed to the Spanglish culture, which we also started doing at home sometimes, because as my siblings and I grew up, I started to be the one who leaned on more Spanish, even though I spoke English really well. My younger brother preferred to communicate with all of us in English, but he spoke to my parents in Spanish. And my sister was a little more like myself to this day. She also speaks really well in both languages. And so, yeah, with me, it could be in either Spanish or in English. Y como había dicho, cuando estuve creciendo, se me reducieron las oportunidades de viajar a México, y solo pude ir allá una o dos veces, a veces por una semana, a veces por 2 semanas, pero todavía ahí pude comunicarme muy bien con mis familiares. Pero ahí en ese entonces ya no era tan posible de usar este tipo de inmersión para continuar hablando español. Así que en Estados Unidos también tenía que ver algo de televisión. A mí me gustaba más ver las comedias, porque en nuestros canales en Estados Unidos, nuestros canales en español, tenían mucho contenido de México. Las telenovelas que a mis padres les gustaban ver, las comedias, también el fútbol. Entonces yo veía comedias, y a mí me gusta el fútbol, y entonces veíamos fútbol de México, a veces fútbol de Europa, que es o fue narrado en español, y claro, a los mundiales de fútbol, todo fue narrado en español. Solamente veíamos narraciones, las transmisiones que fueron narradas en español, y así todavía hasta ahora como adulto yo estaba expuesto al idioma. Y también seguía escuchando música, pero ahora ya no era música solo de México. También tenía bachata, escuchaba reggaetón, comencé a escuchar un poco de merengue también y después escuchaba algún tipo de música de otros países, algunos géneros también, como el vallenato de Colombia, que es muy bueno. Y, y bueno, uh, y siempre tenía algún tipo de música en español que podía escuchar. Now, here, one reason why I named the presentation the way I did was that in neither country, the US or Mexico, I was usually never seen as one of them. Now, in the US, of course, as we know, it's a country of immigrants. It's a country that has welcomed immigrants into the country for many, many years. But because of the massive immigration waves, we always had people that came into the US from very different countries. And so more often than not, I would always get similar questions. Where are you from? If I simply told someone I'm an American or I'm from New York, they would point out my skin and always ask, but where are you really from? And based on my appearance or my voice sometimes, I would always get these very creative opinions. Oh, you must be from India, or you can be from South America. Oh, wait, you're Greek? You can fit in as a Greek. You can pass for one. You look like one. And so, very few times people would assume that my family was Mexican. And so, it's like I might not fit in the US. People would think I'm from somewhere else. Cuando viajaba a México como adolescente, algunas personas veían mi apariencia y notaban que mi piel era un poco más claro o que los demás, y en algunas ocasiones me decían güero. Y para que a las personas que no saben el significado de la palabra, güero es una persona con piel clara. Entonces, en el pueblo de mi familia, muchas personas tenían la piel oscura o piel morena por los efectos del sol. El sol era tan fuerte cada día en el pueblo que después de un tiempo las personas después se bronceaban. Bueno, aunque no querían, las personas se bronceaban, la piel se hacía más morena. Y entonces, como no soy de allá, algunas veces me decían güero, o si me preguntaban también que si yo era del norte, el norte siendo Estados Unidos. Y bueno, ahí también, como en Estados Unidos, no cabía en México, porque las personas a veces me escuchaban o me veían y simplemente se imaginaban, oh, este muchacho no es de aquí, este muchacho tiene que ser de otro lado. Now, I think I'm really, really lucky that I am bilingual. And not just that I'm bilingual, but I speak two of the most spoken languages in the world, English and Spanish. And as we know now, English is the global language, or the lingua franca, that everyone uses to communicate with each other, even though they're not from the same countries. And Spanish is also one of the most spoken languages. Pretty much almost an entire continent of South America, with the exception of some countries all speak Spanish. It's millions of people who also speak this language, and so this gives me the ability to communicate with a lot of people. And even though there might be some differences in many of these countries in Latin America, uh, this does give me the chance to visit an entire region and speak Spanish with a lot of people. And although I haven't done so yet, I hope that I'll be able to go to a few other countries in Latin America and experience these differences. Although in New York we had some sort of these experiences as well, because in the borough of Queens we have some neighborhoods there where there are people from different parts of Latin America, and the mix is very interesting because everyone has to use a basic Spanish in order for everyone to understand each other. Because if we all start using our regional slang, someone is going to get lost in these conversations. And many of these like language exchange cafes in many parts of New York or in Europe or even online, we just love to talk about our differences in Spanish and the meanings of certain words that change depending on the country. And so, like, this is one of these topics that I will never get bored with, because we'll always find something funny. And now that I am a tutor online, I tutor in both of these languages, and I am much more popular as an English tutor instead of a Spanish tutor. But being bilingual has helped me get students who are either from Latin America or from the United States, because when they see and they understand that I speak their native language, they could always ask me, how do I say this in English or in Spanish? Because I've had English students from Latin America, and likewise, I've had Spanish students from the United States. And everyone has said that it has helped them that I'm bilingual, because as I explained, they can ask me what is the meaning of a word in the other language, and they see this as a benefit. And also, it's a really nice thing, a really cool thing to be bicultural, because the Mexican culture is one of the most famous cultures in the world. People all over the world love our food. Many people know what the taco is. And our culture is shown repeatedly and in many ways. Mexico usually qualifies for the football World Cups regularly, so the name and the country is always in people's minds. There are movies that are made in Mexico, and the recent movie Coco explains one of the traditional Mexican holidays of Day of the Dead. And so that is a tradition that now many people across the world know because of the movie. And as an American, now like I have that ability to like speak English, to be a tutor, to help people with the English language, and there is a special thing about being a New Yorker as well. It comes with its own set of traits and characteristics and personality, we could say. And so there's always memes about this on social media, about how New Yorkers could be, but instead of the negative aspects, we also like to show the positive aspects that were kind of people that helps others when it is truly needed, and we can stick together and be tough. And yeah, this is one of these great things about being a New Yorker. Yeah, so this was my unique path to being bilingual. And I think that it is possible to raise bilingual kids. I was trying this with one of my nieces because my oldest niece was living with us for a while, and so thanks to someone else in the language community who explained the one parent, one language method. This was the method that I used to speak to my niece because I realized that my sister would switch languages with my niece. My brother decided to only talk to my niece in English, and so my mother and I decided that we would only speak to my niece in Spanish. And although my niece sometimes didn't feel so confident in Spanish at times because she was more exposed to English through conversations or videos on YouTube. I tried to play some videos on YouTube in Spanish for her as well. And my mother and I would only have conversations with her in Spanish. And so I noticed that when she got older, she was able to use both languages. Maybe she uses English better because she's more exposed to it, but I really do recommend the one person, one language method. I think it's a really good method for helping the kids to try to practice speaking one language. And then another way that would be good would be to expose the kids to the other language. Someone would be speaking with the kids in one language, and then you can bring in an outside person who you can trust to have the children try to speak or learn a different language. And one other thing that you may use to expose your child to a different language would be to watch videos online. There are plenty of websites, and there's a lot of content that allows you to find videos in a certain language. You can usually find cartoons, and there are some very popular ones out there. And some of these apps will even have a app that's specified for children, so that you will never worried about finding inappropriate content. Like you will have your child only watching cartoons or content that is suitable for them in a different language. And these websites, these apps will have content in various other languages. And so like you will have these possibilities. Expose your child to music, let them watch TV or movies, and you have these websites to watch videos in different languages as well. So there are opportunities to expose your child to a different language. And once they get older, you have to be a little creative to find more content for them, and to be able to mix it up a little bit as well, so that your child will not get bored with the exact same things. Y bueno, muchísimas gracias a ustedes por haber visto mi video. Si tienen algunas preguntas, algunas dudas, o quieren seguir hablando conmigo sobre mis experiencias, con mucho gusto lo haré. Thank you everyone for watching the video, the presentation. If you guys have any questions, or you want to chat with me about these experiences, I'll be more than happy to chat with you guys. Thank you all very much for watching the video.